Well, good morning, good morning, good morning. At least for those of us here in the central United States, it's morning time. We're at approximately 7:30 a.m. here on the 28th, on Sunday the 28th. Don't expect too many people are up this early. But today I decided that I've got some new scenery for this area, so I wanted to take a look and show off the improved Normandy area scenery. And I think that I'm hoping that some folks might join us this morning. We are at LFOP in France, so we're going to do a little demonstration of the beauty of the French countryside. Repeat, good morning, and well, there's somebody tuned in, amazingly, and I'm hoping that I don't stutter and stammer too much during this. I'll give a few more minutes for anybody that wants to show up can show up. Let's see, look around here at the base. There's not much here. It's just pretty much a basic airstrip. And let's get back in the cockpit here and start our startup procedures. We're going to crank open our window here. Now, I prefer to get this out of my way so I can see. Come on. Do it in the right order here. Got full fuel tanks, that's good. Always good. On our, we'll go ahead. It's pretty cold today, so I don't think we'll need our cowl flaps open. See, it's about 4 degrees centigrade. So that's plenty cool enough to keep everything cool for a while. We'll watch our engine heats, and if they start to go up, we'll open up the cowl flaps. Let's see. Beacon, come on. Ever since the sim update, it's like the mouse isn't truly on target. You have to aim just a little bit off. Nav lights, strobes, pitot heat, always pitot heat. Probably even if you don't need it, you should turn it on. I'm going to set my parking brake. Make sure my throttle and mixture are full rich and props to 100%. Okay, let's see if we can crank this puppy up. Left magneto, right magneto, both magnetos. Lean out the window here and say clear prop. Oh, now it wants to hiccup. No, do it now. Get it out of the way, please. I know one thing I forgot to do. Turn some fuel on. Won't go without fuel. I can hear the engine going. Yep, prop spinning. Give her a couple of minutes here on the ground to warm up a little bit. We'll check our gauges here. Yeah, we're starting way down there and everything's got to come up. When everything's in the green, we'll start to taxi, which is basically a 180-degree turn. Now, what I'm planning to do today is to show off a little bit of this new scenery. So I'm going to be flying pretty low. I'm only going to be going at most 1,000 feet high. I'm going to try most of the time to go for about 600 or 700 feet. I want to get a better look at the terrain. My oil pressure is already in the green, and temperature is okay. A little bit cool. Our oil temperature is coming up. It's faster to cycle the views that way, so I can get into my cockpit here and get my feet up on the pedals. And we're just going to release our brake. Add a little bit of power. Close our window. And turn around here. I'm just going to taxi up to the you can see that the runway is a little bit offset, so I'm going to taxi up to the numbers. And there isn't a name tag in the sky on East server. Tell you what, I want a little bit more population. I'm going to switch over to the North Europe server and see if there's anybody over there. Even if they're off in the distance, I like flying with people. There, let's go to North Europe. There we go. We're set on North Europe now, just to give it a couple of minutes to synchronize with the servers here as we taxi up to the numbers. It's got a big yellow X on it. I expect that they're expecting this airport to be closed to service. But we're going to use it anyway. It's our bit of rebellion for the day. There's a name tag in the distance. Somebody in a 320. You can see they're way up there at 28,000 feet. Okay, here we are at the end of the runway, and we're getting ready to take off. Turn our transponder on at this time. Come on, let's go. Mouse, mouse, mouse. On. Squawking 7,000. On. Set it for altitude, please. There we go. Now I'm going to set you for 1,000 feet. And I'm going to double reverse my flight plan here. I want to select flight plan, menu. I want to invert it. That's where we're going. Now I want to select it again and invert it again. There we go. And I want to set my CDI to GPS because we're going to spend a lot of time looking outside the airplane today. Oh goodness, I see somebody over there. That's a good choice, Floyd. Considering where we're at today, a spit would be just about perfect for this. The only reason I'm taking my Bonanza here is it has an autopilot and hopefully will follow the nav route. we'll give it a few more minutes for everybody some more people to show up. I don't even know if this fellow is watching us today, but he's over this MSW MSBW S27 is also in a 172, and I hope he's also taking this tour, even if he's not watching today. I hope that he will enjoy his sights, because I do think this is a beautiful part of France. Now, this is about an hour and a half or 2 hour tour that we'll be taking this morning. So I hope everybody has got you might as well fill your tanks. It's going to be a long one. Here goes another pilot. This is a popular area. Well, let's go ahead and get airborne. Lord knows Floyd's spit will catch up with us. Now I'm going to add a notch of flaps. Set my brake here. Run my engine up. Release the brakes. Give her toga power. Come on, stay on the runway, honey. There you go. Not a long runway. Must be a little bit windy today. 60. And we're up. Coming up at 500 feet a minute to raise my gear. Here, gears up. Let's see, flaps up. Don't be stalling. Let's get some speed up here. Come on, we're over 100 miles an hour. That's a good speed. And what I'm going to do is turn around. I'm going to try to cut on my nav as I come back to the airport here. Now, see, I'm already at 1,000 feet. Well, there is an active runway here at this airport. I just wasn't on it. I was using the old runway that's closed, the short one. There's Floyd. Good morning, Floyd. We see you down there in your spit. Okay, autopilot. Zoom in here. Come on. AP on. We'll turn the nav on. And our altitude on. We're turning. Apparently it's got it. At least I hope it does. Okay, we're going to have to do this the hard way, looks like. I just want to come down a couple of 100 feet here. Now, this flight plan came with the scenery, and it's a really nice little flight plan. It takes us all over the Normandy area. Okay, we're almost right at it. You know what I didn't do? I didn't set, well, I did push the, set it before takeoff, so we're good. Okay. You got her. Let's see, go in and out here. Now we're flying toward the town of Le Havre, which is a major port city. It says actually where the Seine River comes in. Now I'm going to take a quick jaunt to the map. Yeah, we're on the flight plan. Excellent. We're making about 170 knots. We're going to pull our power and RPMs back a bit. I'm going to put my RPMs right at about 2350 or so. I want to try to keep an airspeed of about 150 to 160 is where I want my airspeed to stay at. Figure most of us can. The Electra is good at that speed. The Mooney, the Turbo Arrow is really good at this speed. There we go. Now we're the Seine River is wandering back and forth across the countryside as it heads toward the coast, and we're heading for a little place called Jumanji. It's up here at Le Havre. Now, this isn't the part of the Normandy coast where all the action took place, but it's got a fascinating little historical marker that's up here. We're going to take a look at it as we go. As you can see from our flight plan, it's only 5 miles away. It's up here in one of these river bends. Now, if the weather gets too nasty where we can't see the ground, we'll switch to the low clouds setting. We want to be able to see what we're looking at. Now, Floyd, if I was trusting myself with coffee back here, I'd have a cup. But since my incident, I'm a bit clumsy with liquids, so I don't trust them around my keyboards or electronics. Even though my computers are, well, up and away from wherever I would store my cup, I still don't trust myself. I'd hate to get my keyboards and joysticks sticky. Okay, under 3 miles to our first little lookout point. Get outside, take a peek. Right here in the middle of this river bend. Look at that water here. And we've got a DA-62 with us. How nice. More people the merrier. This country should be shown off and seen by as many folks as possible. Now, this is what they want us to look at. We'll pass right over it. some hay bales out in that field. Oh, we're cooking it. I tried this tour out in a X Cub yesterday, and it went and went and went and went. Seemed like I was taking forever to get someplace. Our next little visit is there's a bridge up here to look at. Remember, some of these are the modern bridges, and it's quite an extensive road network. I expect that this is the road that Murph took when he was touring during touring the Normandy area a few years ago. It's a really pretty bridge. It'll be my luck it won't draw it in. Just because you test something out on one day doesn't mean it's going to work the next. I had to fight with all my electronics this morning to just get this far. For some reason, my router disconnected my phone and I had to reboot the router. And to get to the router, I had to move everything out of the way, all my broadcast equipment, just to get to the router. And that was, well, a fun project. Because I didn't want to move it totally out of the way. I wanted to be able to put stuff back. So it had to be moved out, and then moved back. I hope I did everything right. I hope I'm broadcasting well. Okay, we're coming up on this bridge. Look how extensive this bridge is. They really, the guy that did the scenery did a really good job. See, the bridge goes over some factories and such on the riverside. Now we're changing course yet again. Moving on to our next spot on the tour. Let's see, let me look at my map a second and see where we're going. This would be a place called Point to Tancaraville. It's where we're going. It's 11 miles away. We'll take a look at that. Then we're going to head up toward the coast. Now, Floyd, I hope my engine noise isn't being too intrusive on my microphone. I don't like to think that it's probably going to pick it up twice. If it is too intrusive, I'll turn the sound down out externally. I've just got it on for my own ears to pick up. Now, where we're going is right up here at the bend of this river. I do like this little airplane. It's got the reputation as a doctor killer, but it's not. It's a very nice, stable aircraft if you'll fly it within its limits. When you try to take it outside of its limits, that's when it gets kind of dangerous. Of course, that's with anything. You fly it within its envelope, within its limits, and you'll be perfectly safe. Now, you can see there's a bit of a bridge ahead of us toward the mouth of the river, but we'll be back a little bit later to take another closer look at that bridge. It's a very pretty bridge. Now, one thing is you gotta kind of stay sharpish to look and see where the monuments are. You can see there's some high ground that's on to the right side of the riverbank, which would make it a kind of important spot to put artillery or tanks up on. You can see how kind of low and flat the rest of the terrain is. So that would make any hill kind of an important piece of property. Well, Viper Strike, welcome aboard. We're in, we just took off a few minutes ago from LFOP. So if you're anywhere in Normandy is probably a pretty good bet to join us. I'm following the little flight plan that came with the scenery pack that I got. Found it on Flight Sim TO. It's the Asobo native scenery didn't have all the monuments or museums that dot the Normandy coastside and mark the important areas of Normandy. And this scenery takes care of that and puts them in place. One of the things we may pause our simulation and take a closer look at is one of my favorite pieces of scenery called the Pegasus Bridge. Now let's see what they wanted us to look at. Okay, now we're beelining it toward the coast up here. Got some low cloud to pass through. Now I'm going to balance my load and switch tanks here. We haven't used very much fuel off the left, but just in case, when we switch back and use more fuel, we'll pump some out of our wingtip tanks and into the main fuel tanks. That is nice about this aircraft. She does carry her own reserve fuel supply. One thing is we're so low that mixture isn't really going to come into this. So if you want to run full rich, you can. If you want to lean it out just a touch to lessen your fuel consumption, that's also acceptable. Okay, how fast am I actually going here? Right at about the target speed. Running right at 147 knots. Well, Viper, you're on the last weekend of your baseball tour, aren't you? And you're more than welcome to just lurk along and watch. Hiccup, hiccup, hiccup. Come on, load that scenery. choke it down. I can see Floyd off our wingtip over here. Looks like he's in the clouds too. Oh, I can see Viper Strike is heading towards Seattle in the DC-6. He's going to really like that flight. Any flight in DC-6 is really a fun flight. Now, I'm not so good with the DC-6. She's a little bit outside my comfort envelope. I haven't mastered the Sperry autopilot in it yet. Once I do that, I'll be fairly confident in it. But I'm more of a 2-engine person than a 4. Now, once a B-17 comes into the simulator, I'm going to be a lot happier with that 4-engine setup. Yes, air to air, we're talking to you guys. In case anybody wants to join us, we're on North Europe because we can actually see people on North Europe. For some reason, whenever I try to join East USA, it may be the lowest ping time, but the skies are not crowded. And I like a busy sky. It's nice to fly with people. I just wish I was a better conversationalist. I just enjoy the scenery. Passing this low and flying at this altitude, you get to see the churches and all the little towns. I think France is such a beautiful country. There's always a little village or cluster of buildings within a decent walking distance. Well, at least the way I used to walk anyway. And now it'd probably take me all day just to go from town to town. Okay, I can see something out there on the horizon in the middle of the ocean. I bet you those are wind turbines. One thing that's very popular along the French coast are the renewable wind turbines. That flight sim scenery likes to place them just all over the place anyway. Kind of like trees. Oh, hello, Floyd. That was a nice fly past. And from where we're going up here on the coast, we'll be headed straight for the actual town of Le Havre. Make sure that I am pointing in the right direction. Now this first little lookout point up here ahead of us is next to LFOS, and it's called the Chateau De Jonville. And it's a pretty well-known French chateau. And from there, we're going to be cruising down to Le Havre proper. And taking a look at that, we'll be passing over a radar station once we're past Le Havre. Get my map out of the way. Okay, they weren't out to sea. They were inland a bit. Well, Colonel Fork 85 is here. Now, Colonel Fork is one of my heroes. Got me involved in streaming. I don't think I'd have ever had the courage to even start streaming without the likes of Colonel Fork and Two Tone Murphy and Allison Johnson. They were very inspiring to me. Uh, they just they make they made this all entertaining, and I know that well a lot of my friends and family might look at this and think, man, you're just going from point to point. How boring can that be? Well, today we're going from not only point to point, but we're going to lots of little points in between. And those little points are what makes this little voyage interesting. Okay, here we're coming up on the chateau. It's 3 miles away. I can't tell if it's down on the river bottom or up on the headland. Yes, I know I'm supposed to have looked yesterday when I did my test flight, but I was too busy messing with the airplane. The live weather's a bit sporty today. See, it's bouncing us around a little bit, not too badly. Okay, we're 1 mile out. Let's see if we can see anything. Yes, there's the chateau, and we're adjusting course just a little bit over it, and then we'll be heading on up to the coast here, and then we'll make a course change to go down toward Le Havre. I really enjoy this little V-tail Bonanza. She's cute, and two, it flies so well and so nice. Now I would bet $1 to a donut with that sized parking lot that there's a museum here. Come on, let me take a look at it. There it is. Now we're headed down the coast toward Le Havre. Looks like there are some ships out there at sea. Now, if I was feeling adventurous or in a on a fighter sweep, I'd go out there and take a look at them and see what they're doing. Because those don't look right like freighters. Those look like warships. I wouldn't blame the French Navy for patrolling this stretch of ground anyway. This is, it doesn't really look like it's a long distance on the map, but when you actually have to cover it, in an aircraft or probably in a car, it's actually quite a distance. And this aircraft is doing 150 knots. So we're hopefully going to cover this ground pretty quickly. Floyd's doing an excellent job staying with us and seeing the sights. Yeah, we're getting now. Once we get past Le Havre up here, we'll be actually into the beach area. This is just a little bit outside the beach area. This is more where the Germans had some of their command and control centers. Now, one thing this fella didn't include was the casino at Westerham. I added a little waypoint to go take a look and see if the casino is still there in Flight Simulator. I don't expect it is, but it would be cute if it was. I think the way that they were portrayed in The Longest Day, the French were very brave in taking back their homeland. I was always impressed with how brilliantly they did resist. No one deserves to be under another person's thumb. Oop, there go the servers again. Peekaboo. It's more like, peekaboo, I don't see you. Look at how rugged those cliffs are. Goodness. I can see why this part of the coastline wasn't a favored place to invade. Just that the sheer climb up those cliffs would have been incredible. They're not white as the cliffs of Dover, but they sure are big. Fly over the windmills. Another little town that we have to pass over. Let's see what this one is called. This little port. It's called Fécamp. I know I'm butchering the sound or the pronunciation, but I'm going by the way it reads on the map. Fécamp is as good a guess as I can come to it. My best bet is to stay away from the French names because, well, I will get them messed up. I should probably stick to the way they were written up in the orders for Neptune and Overlord. This is such a peaceful area now, and such a beautiful area. Now, I'm glad that they put the museums and stuff back in here, because they're a worthy thing to see. Now, it's going to take us a little while to get there, because we've got to cover this part of the coast first. Kind of to whet your appetite before you get to the main course of the meal. just anybody that wants the scenery for this pack, just go to flightsim.to and search Normandy, and they should have the whole pack. This guy did a really good job of putting things in, and he made them look like it was native. There's quite a bit of buildings that you can tell are not native. He did a really good job of those, the lighthouses and the forts. But a lot of the buildings look like they belong, just naturally occurring, which is, I guess, the way it should be, really. Now, there's a set of rocks that I would not want to adventure with. There's a little hole in that one rock that Mother Nature has carved that looks quite scary. I would not want to. I might fly a drone through it, but I sure would not want to care to fly an aircraft through it. Flying through the natural arch in Utah is scary enough, but that little hole, no. And I am not tackling this bridge today. And there we are, flying into the morning sun. See a bit of a breakwater off to our right there. The French coast is dotted with these little bitty ports that are home to quite a big fishing fleet, I would expect. There we go, changing course again. Looks like we're going to get closer to these cliffs. That's okay. As long as we've got enough altitude to clear them, we're in good shape. Now, I would expect we're going to drive the local traffic controllers nuts. Hey, we're squawking 7,000. We're a VFR flight. We're not bothering anybody. We've got air cover. As you can see, this is one of those places a P-38 is welcome. Especially if you can find one with invasion stripes. Now, one paint scheme for the P-38 I was happy to see finally come out is a P-38 that I've followed her story for the past 20 years or so. They found her in a block of ice in Greenland, and they dug her out, refurbished her, reset her up. She's a P-38F model, and they named her Glacier Girl because she was found in a glacier. And she's been touring the U.S. ever since. She's just painted OD green, but it's still a very pretty aircraft to look at. Now, of course, we've got the L model here in the game, in the simulation. That's a really magnificent job of making it, and really represents the L model very well. The one thing I haven't tackled yet here in the sim is the Great Crossing. which is how the Glacier Girl got to be trapped in place, was they were ferrying a whole squadron of P-38s up through St. John's, Newfoundland, across to Greenland, and then over to Iceland, and then to the UK. And the Glacier Girl had to be left behind because of engine trouble, and then the snow covered her up, and the rest is history. She's literally a piece of flying history now. Now we're going to come up to these tall areas, and then we'll hang a left, and we'll go up the river toward the bridge, almost back toward the place we came from. Get a bit out of these morning clouds. Although I think in live time here in France, it's in the afternoon. Colonel Fork, you are a lucky man to have gotten to see Glacier Girl in all her glory. The one that, now this has been many years ago for me. We had an air show down at the old Cortland Army Air Base, which at one time was a B-24 training base. They trained pilots for their cross countries there. And, well, we had an air show there. And I loaded up my sisters and my stepmother and took them to the air show. And that year we had snowbirds, and we got several military flybys. I actually got to see an F-117 alive. I was still waiting to park my car at the time, and unfortunately didn't have any film in the camera yet. Yes, it was so long ago that I was shooting with a 35 millimeter instead of a good digital. I wish I'd have had the digital. That was a spectacular air show. Yes, Viper Strike, she was found under an ice sheet. She was buried about 60 or 70 feet down. When they found her, and they had to tunnel down and dig out all the snow around her. She was in remarkably good condition for all of that weight on top of her. Now here we come up to one of the bigger bridges in the Normandy area. It's a really beautiful custom piece of work. You can see all the suspension cables coming off of the tower. Excuse me. Coming off of the towers. Okay, we'll take a good look at the bridge here. Then we'll head toward the little town of Cannes and little town of Oysterham. And take start the museum tour. Now here you can see several places on the ground. They're either really fond of crop circles, or this is where a couple of the museums are. Some of the bigger chateaus. Scary. 1100 should be plenty high enough to clear this area. Love seeing how many churches are in these French villages. I think the only place with more churches per capita is right here in Alabama. Matter of fact, where we have our Renaissance Fair is in a city park, and it's a little square area, and on 3 of the 4 corners there's a church, which is always handy on our Sunday shows. Now that's what I like. Colonel Fork in a P-51D. He's flying his proper colors, too. Out of this cloud, we can start to see things again. Yeah, when I got this scenery from Flight Sim, this wasn't just one file. This was about 3 or 4 different files. There was an Omaha Beach file, a Pegasus Bridge file, a Juno Beach file, and one for Utah Beach, the Utah and the Cherbourg Peninsula. Oh boy, I can hear that P-51 coming. Where is he? Let's see where he's at. There he is. There's Floyd off my wing. It's hard to keep the hat switch over. Now see, what's nice is I'm going at a good enough pace here that the spit is not working too hard to stay slow. We have an obvious racetrack here on our left. I would probably bet ponies. Although there's no telling what kind of track you might find. There's a track and field place right next to it, so there's no telling what it might be. Now you can see the coast road down there on our left. It's got a couple of roundabouts in it. Oh, make me hiccup. Still a glorious sight. I don't blame the Army Air Corps trying to check out what this beach bonanza is doing over its invasion beaches. Somebody doing the detail of putting in the ships would be amazing, but we're talking several thousand ships. That'd be a bit much to do. Now I am grateful they've got the what's left of the mulberries up here for us to look at today. And those were impressive projects on their own. Quite a clever idea to keep the supplies flowing. I think the weather is having a little bit to do with my hiccups. It's trying to draw all these clouds in place. Now I know Colonel Fork has been here several times in his flights, on his flights, and I appreciate all the time that he has taken with his coverage of this area. And once we get a proper DC-3, or C-47 as she was known, I would like to get a large gathering of us together and come back here. And if they ever get, and they're coming with their, getting the gliders implemented, if somebody out there is a pretty good aircraft designer, build us a Horsa. I would like to have a landing challenge of how close can you get to the Pegasus Bridge. Mind you, it's the new bridge that's in place, but the old bridge is right next to the new bridge. They kept it. Which is, I think, a sign of just how grateful the countryside really is for all the effort that was shown to them. These people take their memorials pretty seriously here. Check my map a sec and see where I'm at. It's a little town called Cabourg, or Dives-sur-Mer, Dives-sur-Mer. Now I'm just guessing. Now we'll be coming up, it's called the Batterie de Merville, here in about 3 miles. He's actually got some guns in place here. Get inside so we can see when we get there. We may jump out of our cockpit, go down and take a look, especially if there's a cloud coming. Now, one thing I'm grateful for, when I tried this flight yesterday, I had to change the weather because, well, it was rainy and wet and cold. On a little flight like this, you're close enough to the ground, you don't really want ice build up. Okay, 1.3 miles. Be coming up on the cannons fairly quickly. Just a little bit. There they are. Well, let's just take a quick active pause here and go to our camera view. And select our camera here. And I want to increase the speed of movement a little bit more, please. I don't know why it sets it so low. Okay. Let's see. Down. And there are the guns. See Colonel Fork off in the distance. These are the bunkers that are left. You can see they've got a bomber on the ground here in the real world, but that he didn't get quite added in here. You can at least see her shadow anyway. I'm just tickled to have all this stuff here. See their bunkers. Pretty well detailed little bunkers. Okay, let's get back up into our aircraft here. Find our plane. There we are. That's a good spot. We'll unpause ourselves. Now we'll have to do it the hard way. Here we go. Unpause. And now we can get on with our little trip here. That was an interesting little tour of a gun emplacement. Now, the next stop on our little tour is a place called Oysterham. I'm going to actually go up here and look and see if I can find the casino. I don't think they've got there's the casino, or at least where the casino should be. There we go. I think, yep, we're headed for the Pegasus Bridge. Well, welcome aboard, Zeus. We're in your part of the world. I hope this guy has done it justice. I think it's fine. And I appreciate the effort he put into building us this scenery. Let's see, let's get back into our cockpit here. We're going to do a quick active pause again here at the bridge. And then we're going to go take a look at it. Pick up, pick up. Okay. Now let's go down to the deck. Come on, there we go. Now see, up here on our left, where we're headed, right where I'm headed the camera right now, we've actually got a model of a Horsa glider and the old Pegasus Bridge. There's a couple of pack 38s, some French guns. You can even see there's people that are walking across the bridge here. They've got a nice little museum here. All the Allies' flags are in the wind flying up here. That's always a good sign to see. And then there's the original, the new bridge, what they call it, but it's pretty much a carbon copy of the old bridge. I think it's one of the more interesting places and stories that came out of the whole Normandy invasion. I'll not spend too long here. Find our airplane again. Well, goodness, folks. Here we go. Now, just unpause this. Here we go. Now we're headed for Juno Beach. This is where the Canadians came ashore. And for all our Canadian friends up north, this is the contribution you made. And it was... the Canadians are often forgotten and neglected. And they turned out to be a very important part of this whole operation. There was a point in 1944 and 45 when the people of Holland, after Operation Market Garden failed, the people of Holland were starting to starve to death. And the British and the Canadians organized a food drop. They were using hundreds of bombers to carry food to Holland and kicking it out of the airplanes low over the ground and feeding the people of Holland. I discovered this just a couple of years ago and thought it was a just totally interesting subject to learn about. Normandy's a pretty good sized area, so there's lots of places to catch up. Now, let's see. Right here in Cannes and Ouistreham, we have a little airport. I'll give you the code here. We're coming up on a radar station. The local airport is LFRK. That's the airport in Cannes, France. And we would like to have all of our friends come in. If you want to join us, that's pretty much the closest airport to where we're at. Now let's see what this radar station's got for us. I would expect it would be just a building out in the middle of a field somewhere. We're 1.2 miles from it. There's no telling what we'll find. There's the radar station, and Colonel Fork is flying next to it now. There she is. The actual buildings don't look like much, but they played an important part in the actual invasion, and were quite a bit of a target for the troops on D-Day. See, we're on the end of the beaches where the British paratroopers and landed, and they contained the back areas here. You can see how flat the countryside is. Here we're coming up on Juno Beach itself. I would expect there to be a pretty good sized little museum up here, and there is. And there's also a merry-go-round here, I believe. Okay, let's stop right about there. We'll go to camera. Come on. Now we know where we parked. There's our plane. Let's take her down and see. Quite a bit of ground to cover here. Yes, there is a carousel here. We've got something for everybody. Bring the kids. An inflatable man on the end of the pier. Okay, I gotta take a look at this fella. That's a little bit... okay, it's not a man, it's a lighthouse. Come on down. And a little bit more. Yeah, there's a lighthouse here. How nice. Got a lighthouse. We've got a carousel. A multi-level carousel. That's a pretty detailed carousel. And this is right across from one of the main museums, I guess, here. We'll go take a look at that. Now here's one of the bigger museums in the area. I think Murph showed us some pictures of visiting this museum, for which I'm grateful to see. See the people out in front of the monuments. We've got a mortar, it looks like. Or no, it's an anti-aircraft gun. And a couple of regular cannons. I wonder if he put anything on the plaque here. Oh, there is. Now, come on. A little bit. Come on. Just a touch there. Okay. Come on. Get it focused here. Come on. Focus the camera. Move that out of the way so we can see. In honor of all those who died or disappeared while serving the Royal Canadian Navy during the conflict of 1939 to 1945 in Operation Overlord, June 1944. Thank you. Dedicated June 2009. The Juno Canada Normandy Foundation. That's beautiful. That's a beautiful monument. Back to our bird. There we go, home. Let's see where our nav takes us. As we go down Juno Beach, we'll be heading for Omaha Beach next. We've got to cover Sword and Gold to get there. You can see how gentle the beaches are here. From the sea straight inland, it's a pretty easy slope. No cliffs or any big obstacles to overcome. So yes, the British and the Canadians actually had a fairly easy beach here. But as you can see, as we get closer to Omaha, the terrain starts to rise a bit, and the coastline gets kind of rugged. Now, one of the things we're coming up on is it's the remnants of the Mulberry Harbors, or at least one of the Mulberry Harbors, that was used to. This is where the ships were able to dock and unload all their supplies. They were a brilliant piece of man-made engineering and a real wonder of the world for their time. Colonel Fork is actually really doing a really nice flight down low. He's getting a good look. It's amazing just how much with all the storms that have happened in the last 90 years, there's still so much left. Of course, they were made out of concrete and steel, so it's not really surprising how strong they actually were. Now we're going to head up the beach to Omaha here. Check our maps and see which items of interest are going to be up. Okay, our next item to look at is going to be the Batterie de Longueuil. Basically, I guess some long guns. These were what they were using to shoot at the invasion fleet with. Now, one thing on the tour, I don't think Breakhor Manor is on our tour. but I'm going to try to see if I can find it on a map and add it into this tour, because I think Breakcore Manor would be an interesting spot to take a look at from the air to see actually how far those guns could reach. If you're wondering what I'm talking about, Breakcore Manor is where Easy Company of the 506th Parachute Regiment fought and secured 4 guns that they on D-Day itself. It was the encounter was brilliantly done in the show Band of Brothers. The actual plan of contact is taught at West Point. Okay, here's another battery of guns underneath us. The 4 buildings that are lined up and facing the sea is another battery of cannons that are aimed out at anybody coming ashore. That anybody could use this much concrete is amazing. I think as a society, we take the matter of making concrete, we take it for granted. Concrete is quite a actual complex material. Just ask the Romans. Their concrete is still around. Whereas some of the modern concretes that we make crumbles after 10 years. So I would say the Romans did a really good job of mixing up their concrete. And we're obviously headed a little bit inland here. Let's see where we're going here. Okay, the place we're going is a place it's on the other side of Bayeux. It's called Balleroy. Zeus, if I'm making any mistakes with my pronunciation here, you let me know in chat where I'm goofing up at. I think between the show Band of Brothers, Saving Private Ryan, and The Longest Day, I think those 3 movies are kind of essential watching if you are a fan of D-Day or of that time of the world, because they're all very educational, fact-based stories. Now, they took a lot of liberties to make a movie or a TV show with, but they're all based on actual events. Now, one thing that the scenery developer did not do was he did not put the parachute over the top of the church steeple in St. Mary Glees, which they have determined was actually a... Excuse me just a second here as I readjust myself in my chair. Yes, I get, oh, of course we can't think of it when we're trying to, doesn't happen often, but my tail section gets a little sore from sitting too. Now, if I walked a little bit better, I'd probably spend a lot more time being active. But it's still difficult to walk. The left leg just doesn't quite keep up. It allows me to walk. I'm not chair bound or anything, but I'm not running sprints either. Between the artificial hip and and the stroke, it's not been kind to that left side. Now here we're changing course again. See, there's the chateau at Valleycore. That's a big chateau. It's very easily seen from the air. Well, Zeus, I hope you can take out the time to go see those Roman monuments that you have. There's no telling when we might lose them. Yes, climate change is a real thing. I don't think the humans are causing it per se, but I think that Mother Earth is warming up and trying to adjust herself. It's a normal activity. It's happened throughout the ages of time. We've actually been in a bit of a cool period because of the volcanoes have been putting a lot of air, a lot of coverage into the air. It's blocked out a lot of the sunlight, so it's been cooler than it should have been. Hiccup, hiccup. Come on, load that scenery. Even with all these little hiccups, this is still the best. This is the best sim I've ever seen. And I used to throw a lot of money at my sims. Back in the day when I was flying Flight Simulator 9, or FS 2004 as they called it, I threw a lot of money at it. At the time, we were doing what we called the Round the World Tour. Not quite what we are associating with Captain Arash or what we did with the Amelia Earhart recreation of with Allison. But it took us 1,182 flights, that's takeoffs and landings, to fly around the world. We covered every continent and flew over across every ocean. We used the Bering Sea land bridge to cross the Pacific, and we used the Denmark Straits to cross the Atlantic. Which meant for even the weather systems back in the day, it was cold and wet, lots of rain. Believe it or not, that's when I did use a P-38 in. I had the big 300-gallon drop tanks on her, and I was at about 12,000 feet. Had the mixture so lean that the engines were barely running, and she just crossed like a champ. We kept her at about 180 knots all the way, and she did a beautiful crossing. And I think I'd timed that for a weekend, and at the time I did that one trip. I crossed from St. John's to into Scotland on one day. It took us in the P-38, it took us about 12 hours to make the crossing. Well, gentlemen, I'm just so happy you've joined me this morning. I'm glad we're flying along The servers appear to actually be behaving themselves a little bit this morning. Of course, there's not 50 or 60 of us running around in the same batch of sky either. Now, there's 5 or 6 of us, it looks like, and we're all trying to see the same stuff. And apparently a lot of tourists are too. It looks like there's an ocean liner out there in the middle of the Atlantic. They're also taking a look at the beaches. Now, if I recall correctly, I'm coming up on one of the monuments, the memorials. You can't really see it till we're on top of it. Yep, this is one of the American cemeteries where our honored men are sleeping. They never made it home from here. Well, I'm going to do my trick and pause, switch cameras, and take us down and take a look at this place. Let's see how detailed he actually got. I don't think... Yeah, he did put the crosses in here. We've got the monuments up here. Come on, camera work. There you go. Look at all these crosses here. These brave men, they gave so much for our freedom. We can't ever repay what they've done here. And I hope we can honor them in just our simple ways here and show up how we appreciate what they've done. This is quite an area here. You can actually get a feel for how big the cemetery portion is. I think he did quite a good job with his monument here. See the people walking around on the sidewalks? Let's see what this is. You can see some of the bunkers that are still here. This is the edge of Omaha. Up ahead is Point Du Hoc, where the famous Rangers went ashore. Up here. Go over. Find our airplane again. There we go. And continue our tour here. Down Omaha Beach. We'll be headed up to Point Du Hoc. They really tried to plaster this place really bad between the bombers and the naval gunfire. And then they sent in the Rangers to take out what intelligence was telling them there were several big guns here that were aimed right down at the beaches, and they were trying to neutralize these gun batteries. And then when they got here, found out the guns hadn't even been installed. Everything was built and ready, but the guns weren't installed yet. I don't know if everybody's in. I just hope everybody is enjoying our little tour of Normandy here. Cooperate. There we go, scraping our shoulder on the microphone again. Yeah, we're a genius. In case you hadn't noticed, I'm not that happy with myself sometimes. I shouldn't be. I should be a little bit. I'm grateful, like Colonel Fork says. I'm on this side of the dirt, and that's pretty much a miracle in and of itself. We've obviously got sheep or something down in the fields below us. Or at least the satellites think it's sheep. Colonel Fork is still with us. And he looks like he's having a really good time in that P-51, doesn't he? Beautiful aircraft. Well handled, too. Now we're here is Point du Hoc. You can, you'll be able to see the actual places that the Rangers came ashore. Let's stop and take a look. Okay. Let's go down and zoom on in here. At least as good as we can. Everybody remember where we parked. You can see the remnants of the craters that are still up here. All the buildings that are preserved. Now there's lots of trees up here now. It's been 80 years. They should have grown back. But you can actually see how tall the cliffs are, how rugged they are. And men had to climb up these cliffs just to get to these gun batteries. I thought they did a magnificent job of it. And then back up here. There we go. Let's go. Continue. Now we're in that area between, this was a kind of a gray area. This was the area between Utah and Omaha beaches where actually nobody was invading. If Rommel had known about this gap in the invasion area, he could have exploited it. But because he didn't know, and everything was confused and obscure, it got away from them. Now we're headed toward Utah Beach, and a little bit inland. We're going to go towards St. Mary Glace. Like I said, they don't have the parachute on the church, but it's still you can see where all the paratroopers landed. And then we'll be cruising up the coast of the Cherbourg Peninsula. Eventually, we'll reach Cherbourg itself. Now, let's switch. Let's take a look at our fuel situation. Okay. Now we're down a bit. I'm going to switch tanks to left. Back to left. I'm going to pump some of my auxiliary wingtip fuel into my right tank. It takes a while for it to pump all that fuel. These aren't the biggest lines in the world, but we'll just let that run for a little bit. when we look at this on the maps, we think it's a very kind of small area. But here we're actually getting to look at how actually large it is. I think this place is huge. My farm would just disappear in a place like this. Of course, nobody wants to nobody wants to invade my farm except maybe some IRS folks. They used to call them treasury men. That's actually what department I think they fall under, is the Department of Treasury. They're the tax guys that want to keep us from building stills. Now there we're passing over a couple of museums. We can see a little racetrack here. Looks like Two Cats has joined us. I'm sorry, Two Cats, we're not in a DC-6 today, but you're more than welcome to get in something smaller and join us here. We've still got quite a bit of terrain to cover. And I'm sorry it's taking so long this morning, but I knew this was not going to be a short flight. Normally I try to keep my flights in about the hour and a half range. But this morning, I knew this flight was going to take about 2 hours, or 2.5 hours or so. But once I started it, I was kind of committed to doing it. And I'm kind of a nut. I'll keep going. I think this is such beautiful scenery, and it's nice to see all the monuments put back to where they belong, and where we can find them. This is kind of an interesting place to visit now. Colonel Fort took us here a couple of months ago, and well, it was vanilla. But somebody did some custom work and added in all the monuments, and put in all the little knickknacks in the area, the bunkers and the gun batteries. Now I'm just going to check and make sure. I'm pretty sure this is St. Mary Glace, right up ahead. Yes, it is. We'll be making a course change here. But first we have to pass St. Mary Glace, which was a major concentration area for the 101st and 82nd Airborne Divisions that landed through this area. They were scattered all up and down this part of the countryside. There you can see the square around the church. Now, as we head up the coast here, we'll be actually heading for Utah Beach itself. The actual causeways are you can't see them anymore because the ground isn't flooded anymore. Part of their anti-invasion obstacles were several flooding projects that were throughout this area. It filled a lot of the lowland areas with water. And there were only a few roads that were high enough that could cross the water and went from the beach into the heartland of Normandy, to the hedgerow country. And those were the causeways off of the beaches of Utah and Omaha. One of the weirder facts of Utah Beach is they actually landed in the wrong spot. They were meant to land 2 miles up the coast, and because they landed in the wrong spot, it saved them from some more severe. They didn't take as much gunfire, and were able to put more men ashore faster than they ever thought they could. Of course, a lot of it had to do with the fact that the beachside country here on Utah is a lot lower. Okay, we're going to be taking a look at these little islands off the coast here. They were the site of a couple of gun batteries. They were some of the first places that the Allies actually landed. They had to do it quick and fast so that they wouldn't have the time to get a radio message out and alert the people on the beach. What I find interesting is one of the other sceneries I've got puts a ship right alongside these little islands. To tell you the truth, I think it should be a pirate ship. These islands would be a perfect little base for operating a pirate ship out of. Just far enough off the coast that it's handy to go ashore, and hopefully far enough that the major governments won't bother with you. Yes, my scenery's got a big sailing ship off this little coastal island. Some of these places are just so fascinating to visit. I think one of the places we're going next has got this really tall lighthouse. Which would be a handy beacon to follow if you're a ship trying to find its way into a safe harbor at night. See, I know Floyd's still with us. There's somebody over there just landing in an icon somewhere off to the coast of England. Floyd, Zeus are back there. Colonel Fork is with us. Now this is what I call flying. This is flying with friends. Getting to expose them to the little nicks and crannies of our world that have always fascinated. Well, a lot of places I want to show you have always been places that fascinated me anyway. There are so many places in history that it's fun to go and actually take a look at. Now it'd be a longer stream, but one of the places I intend to go is back to the Solomon Islands, and they've had a little bit of civil unrest there recently, but I'd like to go back and fly the route from where Henderson Field is on Guadalcanal up to Rabaul and back. Of course, we don't actually have an aircraft that in the sim I think that can make that trip yet. It's a long run. It really tests stamina. this is on this little island up here. There's a lighthouse. This is farther up the Cherbourg coast. We'll be heading up toward the actual city of Cherbourg here in a little bit. But he wanted to show us this little lighthouse first. It's actually quite a bit of a structure, this lighthouse. There are several ships in this little harbor here. Not just the flat little submerged docks that they usually give us. This is an actual marina. You can actually see the sailing ships and fishing ships down in the harbor. And there's a little lighthouse at the end of the breakwater. Another little fortress island with a little castle on it. Now we'll cruise down the coast to actually Cherbourg City itself. Cherbourg City is always worth looking at. There, we've refueled. Used up half our reserves in the right fuel tip tank. Get our nose out the window again. The airplane's doing fine, taking care of itself, which is quite the miracle. And we'll be coming up on a couple of coastal installations up here, then cutting on down the coast. I'm starting to feel bad. I used to know every code in this simulator for the aircraft we would fly. And now it's becoming hard to keep up. There's so many good airplanes that are coming out every day. And there's always somebody that wants to fly them and try them out. Like there's somebody in the PC-6 out there. He's obviously coming across the channel from England. You'd think I could do that without bumping into this silly microphone. Like Colonel Fork, I need to drop some... I need to lose some tonnage here. I'm going to go back on a more severe diet. Managing to keep my sugar under control, and my blood pressure is under control now. So there's, I can take the time to experiment with a weight loss program that's going to be healthier than what I used to eat. I miss the junk food. I really do. But it's just not good for me anymore. We're making that turn. Watching Floyd down there in that spit. Colonel Fork with his mighty P-51. I do miss the old drag and drop days. Didn't like the way an airplane worked. Just drag and drop something and drop it in there. I had one little gadget I used to use in FSX that it did put a glass panel in most of my aircraft. It also added radars and a fuel transfer system, which I thought was really fun when I would be flying. I'd have one PC flying a KC-135, and then I would move over to a second PC, and I would take a Delta Dart or F-105 Thunder F-105 Thud, and then I would refuel in midair, or at least as close as I could get to it. I would kind of like to have that kind of fun in this simulator. I think a KC-135 would be just about perfect. I wouldn't want one of the more modern ones. Of course, I'm a big fan of the 707 anyway. If I have to fly a jetliner, I'm an old-fashioned guy. Give me the 707. I'm just glad that all these little lighthouses were added in. So much of the scenery, like I've discovered stuff on this flight alone with you guys today, that even I missed the other. Like when I flew this yesterday, half this stuff I missed. So I'm finding new things to look at. Now see, there's some kind of shore installations up here at Cherbourg. There's one out on the breakwater, and there's one at the western edge of the city. I'm not sure what the structure is at the west end of the city. It's either a barracks or a big museum, or it's something. It's something big. Fort Cherbourg doesn't get the coverage in a lot of the history books, but it played quite an important role. Now, the Germans knew that the Allies wanted to invade, and they were trying to make things difficult for the Americans and the British. So what they did was they ruined the French port of Cherbourg here, because they knew how it was such a good port and had such good facilities for unloading ships that it would be kind of one of the important things for the Allies to grab. So instead of allowing the port to just drop into the Allies' hands, they sank several ships in the right next to the docks and wrecked the cranes and all the harbor equipment. It took several months to get it all untangled again. But back in the day, that was the solution to things: was throw money at it until it gives. And something had to be done. Now, I don't know what was on this little island here in the middle of Cherbourg Harbor. I would guess another fortress. Whatever it is, it's buried in sand. It's starting to get dark enough where I don't know why it's getting so dark. It's supposed to be in the middle of the afternoon here in France. I'm going to rewind the clock a little bit so I can see this a little bit better. Now it's showing only 4:30 in the afternoon, but it's getting awful dark here. Well, I'm going to roll it back to about 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock sounds good. We're actually getting close to the end of our little run here, a little tour of Normandy. As soon as we look at this structure up here in Cherbourg, we're going to be turning back for the Cherbourg Airport. Then we'll try to land her, see what kind of trouble we can get into. Hopefully Viper Strike is showing off his final day of his baseball tour. We may do a raid on Viper. Scenery hiccups again. Gotta draw that scenery. Even 32 gigs is not enough. And I'm a silly person. I'm happier. I'll put up with the stutters and the low frames for just a second or two while it loads the scenery in, because, well, I liked all the detail. I will admit everything looked, ever since Sim Update 5, it's been, well, not, I won't say plainer, but it's like the lighting's been just a little bit different. Of course, I'd only had the new system for about 2 weeks when Sim Update 5 came out. So I hadn't had all that long to play with all the new scenery. Now the system I was running this on an old just a 1660 card, and it barely had 16 gigs of RAM. That's the streaming computer now. That way this PC can just focus on the actual running the simulation. Okay, here we go, coming around to head for the airport. Passing over the actual docks here at Cherbourg. I will give it this: it's a much bigger curve in the in this Bonanza than it was in the X Cub. Now, when I get closer to the airport, I'm going to take her off autopilot. See if we can. It will be going past the and coming in from the other direction. Yep, Colonel Fork's got the right idea. He's coming in. That's the direction we'll be coming in from. So we'll have to go past the airport and come back, hook back around. Now I appreciate all the company you guys have given me this morning and coming along on this little tour. So, and I'm hoping everybody will hang around once we land. We'll wait around a few more minutes, get everybody on the ground, and we'll take a couple of pictures to show that we've been here. I think that's just as I like doing that at the end of Allison's streams, and I think this would be a good place for souvenir picture taking as well. Well, hello, Black Cobra, and welcome to the coast of France. We're coming into our final landing here in Cherbourg, and we kind of missed out on all the fun stuff. Okay, let's see. Zoom in here and turn off our autopilot. Come on. There, turn off the autopilot. Hop out. Come on, you. We'll get on our downwind here. Colonel Fork's already in our parking area. We'll go park with Colonel Fork. Okay, I need to start cutting back on our fuel here. A bit further out on our downwind before we turn left base. Now, gear, 1 notch of flaps, start our turn. Check and make sure our gear is down. Yep, lights are in transition. Throttle's coming back. Coming way back. Just a little bit overturned, not bad. There we're looking at the end of our... Comes Zeus in from the other direction. Runway's long enough for everybody. Get on. Down, 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 down. Left rudder. Some more. And contact. Brakes here. Missed our taxiway. We'll go to the next one. And then we're off the runway here. We're heading for taxiing to parking. We'll join Zeus and Colonel Fork over here on the ramp. Hear the metal of our aircraft rattling about in there. Well, I'm going to go around the Corsair up here and then come circling back through, and I'll park between Colonel Fork and Zeus and hope there's nobody else in the spot. Dude. Always worry about that fellow standing out there on the ramp by himself. Man, I don't want to hit you. I want to stay clear of Colonel Fork and not hit his tail. All right. And here we are in Cherbourg, folks. All right. Let's go outside. Take us a picture here. Come on. There, level. Up a little bit. Forward. All right. managed to park a little bit too close to Zeus. He's doing the now you see him, now you don't thing. I didn't want that. I wanted to be able to see him. We'll give Floyd a little bit of time here to get on the ground. Got some high flyers out there. Not sure if Floyd's still with us or if the servers have got him. Still with us, Floyd? Oh man, I'll bet you that was not fun to experience. I've made a few of those myself. And when it starts jumping around like that, it's hard to keep her straight. Like I said, I understand about that, Floyd. Been there myself. Well, let's get back outside here. There's Zeus, nice and clear. Try to get a good picture here. Well, let's swing around the camera and take another picture. I want to thank you guys for spending Sunday morning with me this morning. Let's go raid Viper. Hope this works. Or it seemed to work yesterday, or the last time I did my show. Wrong mouse. Yes, Viper. There we go. We're starting our raid.